direct like we always are.
From Sake Room in Coral Gables, baby.
Sake Room.
Correct.
Sunset or Coral Gables?
Coral Gables, Sunset.
With the man,
1569 Sunset Drive.
With the man, Mario Cicilia. How are you, man?
How you doing,
So
Nico?
good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
How you been?
Good,
Gracias.
great.
It's been a long time.
Great.
You know that me and Mario, we go back like 10 years, right?
20.
20.
At least.
Oh,
No, well,
shit.
15.
My boy.
Shit.
I'm happy to be here, man. We're going to
How's
talk
that?
about the old school and the new school. Hey, look, more delicious
More food.
from Sake Room. Amazing. The food here, guys, if you have not been to Sake Room, you have to
I don't
come.
know if production's showing the food over here, but
Listen,
dude, amazing.
come to this location at Sunset. You have the location in Biscayne Boulevard as well.
275 Northeast 18th Street, which is Biscayne and 18th.
Biscayne and 18th.
And Key Biscayne is 328 Crandon Boulevard.
They're all amazing. Trust us. Trust us.
Yeah. And trust us one more time, because once again we start the show, we forget our, as you call them, hashtags or our handles, love handles, etc. Guys, don't forget, you can find us at our website, www.nightlifeentrepreneurs.com/podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, on Google Play, on Facebook, bro, wherever,
YouTube.
anywhere. Oh, YouTube, you can see our videos live also.
Facebook.
And what else? Yeah, everywhere. Nightlife Entrepreneurs.
You know what? Keep telling people, man. Keep.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Ico Taps Beer.
Yeah.
Instagram.
Oh yes. You can follow me at Ico Taps Beer and at Doral Food and Wine Festival.
And myself at the Nightlife Entrepreneur and LMG Miami. What about you? What's do you have any?
On Instagram, Soccer Room or soccerroom.com. That's the name of the restaurant, SAKEROOM.com.
So Mario, we always start the show by asking a question. How did you get into this industry?
Well, it was kind of a mistake. I was supposed to go out with a friend one night to one of your competitors at that point in time.
Okay.
At La Covacha with Augusto Valverde, and we were going to go out. I was helping him promote. I guess we were back in FIU, and we were handing out flyers and helping him out to get a college party going there on Fridays. And I happened to go there, and I met Aurelio Rodriguez, who was the owner of La Covacha.
Shout out to Augusto Valverde and Aurelio Rodriguez, man.
Yeah, man.
And he ended up telling me what I was up to, and I said, well, I was helping Augusto promote. And he said, basically that night he was having an issue with one of the doormen who was doing a number of things he shouldn't have been doing. And he proceeded to tell me to come by the next week to talk to him, and I had no idea why he wanted to talk to me. And when I showed up there the next week, he said if he wasn't planning for me to stay, but if I lived far away, I said no. And he told me, well, do you have a black jacket and a suit or of some sort that you can come in? And I go, why? You want to work the door? And he offered me to work the door that night and gave me some pointers, and I just spontaneously stayed for the night instead of the party to work a door
serious?
with no idea. Yeah.
So I mean, so you guys understand. Basically, Mario started in this industry as a doorman. Like you said, mentioned at that party at the beginning, he worked with us actually for a while in different venues. He helped us out. It was something that I think he enjoyed doing more than having to do in a way.
Hey, but how did they identify? Like, did you speak to anyone about working in the nightlife or anything like that, or it was just something that they knew you? Knew your persona.
Was it your good looks?
Yeah.
Personality.
Faded,
Yeah.
goodbye looks. No,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it was more a fact that I was easygoing and maybe easy to talk to, and I met him briefly a week before when I came back. I guess I was a right fit for him. I guess I didn't understand why he was asking me to do this.
He definitely saw something.
I was a bit more shy back then and not that outgoing, and to an extent, but I was easygoing on talking to people when I got comfortable. And when I got there, I guess, it was 19 years ago, about 18, 19 years ago, and I was 18 years old.
I wasn't born.
And no, the math is wrong there. Wait, I was no, it's more than that. 18. I'm 37 now, so help me with the math. 18 plus 18 is 36.
Wrong.
Yeah.
Somewhere,
About-
yeah.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
it was the right math.
Hey,
You're the
so
one that's doing wrong with the math.
Let me ask you something. Let me ask you, was it like a compliment for you when they offered you that job because you knew that the previous doorman wasn't being honest and wasn't
Well, I mean,
kinda doing
I think
things
that
right?
it didn't come down to honesty at that point in time because I don't think he, maybe he judged me on character, talking to me and briefly, but I don't think you could really tell if I'm going to be a scam artist at the door or not.
Yeah.
I just say it was more a fact it was the right moment, the right time, and I mean, I knew nothing about it to an extent that, well, my dad was actually a DJ back in the day in Miami.
Oh, yeah?
Now I'm not going to do the math for that, but it's over
What
40.
what was his DJ name?
No, it was just Mario Cicilia. There was no DJ
Oh,
name.
okay.
There was a
DJ Cecilia.
It was by Miami-Dade. I think the Mix and the Climax were a couple of the clubs where he used to work at DJing, and he was he mostly played disco music and dance music back in the day, and
Good music.
Yeah, he tried to stay away from the rock because I do have instances where he told me that a couple of the guys from Led Zeppelin would even show up and
Oh, yeah?
do some hit their guitar in there for a while and drive people nuts, and that wasn't really what he was into, but. I mean, and then I had gone to a couple nightclubs with my mom and dad because they had, some of the friends back in the day still working as a doorman actually in Opium when it used to be Mojito. I was like 14 years old, and I remember seeing the guy at the door. It was really intimidating. Then I got to know him because he was a friend of my dad, but I mean, that's a perspective, more of an intimidation factor of going to the door and seeing the guy because I was 14 years old when I went in there.
Did you change the way you approached people, like from when you started to, I don't know how long you stayed doing doors?
I guess it all depends on where you're working at and what you're doing and who you're working for.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the time when I worked at certain places, I felt very comfortable because I think I did a pretty good job, and I was always trying to be fair with everybody as far as the club and the people coming to the venue.
Talk to us about your challenges working the door.
Challenges is just basically when there's a huge crowd out there and everybody wants to get in within the 5 minutes, and by far in your head, these people are looking to wait at least an hour and a half if they're going to make it in the club.
Wow.
Because working with these guys, we worked more than a few great venues. And
How do you deal with the situation of name dropping? Everybody name dropping. Oh, I know this person. Oh, I know. How did you deal with people that you knew?
basically, I mean, everybody had a cell phone
Yeah.
even back in the day. Maybe not that much texting, but
Yeah.
call them, make them come to the door. If they're willing to come to the door and recognize you and tell
Right.
me to let them in, I'll take care of you. If not, it's just gonna be
Sorry.
Something
Yeah.
people ask me all the time is there a trick to get through the door faster?
not. Can we use curse words here?
Of course.
Not
Hell
being
yeah.
an asshole, mainly.
Okay.
Mainly just
Yeah.
being humble. In particular with me, a lot of people that were humble, or I gave an opportunity to a lot of people that maybe were more on the humble side than not on the humble. If you were an asshole, you were basically not gonna get in unless
Right.
you know.
Okay, so that's a tip, all right? When you walk into the club and you get to the door, try to be really nice to that doorman.
Change your asshole face.
Is it like an ego thing though? It's not. It's
Some
probably-
people, even whoever it is, male, female, they just
Yeah.
come in with a
with that I'm gonna come in attitude.
with a
and-
power trip, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna, and that's not really what a doorman will probably. I mean, I'm a human being. I'm standing there. I'll probably be nicer if you're nice to me, And
course.
if,
Right.
don't touch me. Don't grab me, because I don't touch you. I don't grab you either. I mean, to
Right.
grab your attention, it's just stand a few minutes, and I know gradually who was there. I'm pretty good at keeping count. Who got there first, who didn't, who I should let in, who I shouldn't let in.
What about the opposite? What's the one thing somebody should not, like for sure, like, okay, these people are not gonna get in. There's no way.
Well, I guess first thing would be grabbing me or touching me.
Okay.
Second thing, being shit-faced and incapacitated to go into the club, because I mean, there's sometimes certain people just gonna be a
All right,
mess.
so let me ask you a question. If somebody is being that asshole and that shit face and all those negative things, but decides to come back and tip, where is that balance?
I don't think there's not really much balance with me. I mean, you worked with me for a long time. I mean, that's why I was at your door, because there was honesty and there was tipping or no tipping. It didn't make a difference for me. I didn't really like tips at the door sometimes, because it just makes everything look awkward and bad, So one thing is if you say you're gonna take care of me and you pay your entrance, and then I handshake, you pass the line, pass when you pay your cover charge, because you got to understand these guys are working their ass off and all week long they got that place packed, and then if they're giving me the responsibility and the trust more than responsibility, not to be screwing them over, this doesn't look good when there's any type of transaction to the doorman at the door. Yeah, some people will be slick about it, give me handshakes. If there's $100 bill there, I mean, it's going to be hard for me not to take care of that.
So for those of you that don't understand what we're talking about there, we're what he's talking about is when people get to the club, the first person you see is a doorman. If they don't want to let you in, they don't want to let you in. A lot of people think, okay, I'm going to tip this person. And actually, a lot of doormen do take the tips, and they don't really, not everybody watches out for the promoter or the club, depending on who's the one that has the door, whoever owns the door, it could be a different person. But when we are looking for a doorman, we look for somebody who actually takes care of us, right?
And who's going to be honest.
And honesty. And one of the things is we don't mind tips, exactly how he mentioned. The idea is for them to make a little more money than what we can afford, but bringing, making the people pay their cover, helping them out in a different way.
I think it's actually also very classy when a doorman doesn't accept that tip and kind of like follows that protocol.
It says a lot about the person.
It says a lot about the person, and it says a lot about the place. So that's a great thing that I'm sure other venues took. They viewed that and they said, hey man, this guy, we need this guy at our place because he's not shady. He's really honest, and he makes our place look good. Look good. So that's a great thing. Have you ever been? Is there anyone that you've ever come across at your door that you were happy to see, like a celebrity, a fan, or baseball? I don't know, anyone that you were kind of like, oh wow, I had the pleasure of meeting this person, came to the club.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there was, a lot. One day, I mean, somebody that slipped by me and I didn't even recognize because it was security okayed it, and it was like Drew Barrymore at the Icon at Club 50. One of the best parties I ever worked at. Was definitely top 2 or 3, if not the best. I mean,
wow.
And she walked by me and I didn't even recognize her. But I mean, there's sometimes that, I mean, obviously if a big star shows up, it's going to be good for the club and the venue and the promoter to have that individual. So obviously you're going to take care of your VIPs. They're going to walk through. Getting back before I forget, I mean, just anybody considering the spot. One thing is a tip, or a tip can get you in trouble, because maybe that person shouldn't be in. So you got to be, you got to analyze and say, well, is it really worth the 40? I mean, anywhere from 20 to 40 to 50. I've had people hand me $5 as a tip, and it's more of an insult than anything. But
right.
I mean, is it worth me putting that person in the venue? Well, if it's $100 tip, obviously, and they're okay, and there's no issue. I mean, there was times that I would even tell, when Julio or Gustavo were at the door, hey man, I mean, this guy, I mean, he looks kind of crappy, but he just handed me $100 bill, and they were like, let him in. I mean, cool. You know what I'm saying? Because that kind of offset the fact that, and then they were good clients. Or so the greatest thing was having them come back. One of those individuals like walked in, gave me $100, and then came back to the door and asked me, right away to get a bottle service, and he spent a big amount of money that night at the club, and we wouldn't have let him in or expected him maybe if he wouldn't have gone through with the whole tip.
Right.
Could a tip backfire in a sense where they tip you $50, they come in and then they kind of say, hey, I already paid to get in, or
No, because I would make it clear. That was something that I
would
would make very clear, and then before the weigh-in is, I mean, irrelevant. If you tip me, you're gonna that's what I would tell people. I would tell them, if you're gonna tip me, you understand there's a cover charge. That's not a free pass. If you're gonna tip me and expect not to pay cover, you're not gonna get in.
Yeah, got it.
I had an individual, I told that and persisted on telling them that to let him through at the door, and I wasn't going to cheat the club. So I proceeded with giving him back his $50. He gave me two fellows $50. I gave him back his money, and I kindly told him to leave the club. And that was the end of the story. I mean, I wouldn't like anything done to me that I wouldn't, I don't want anything to backfire or anything. Sometimes things happen, but if it's not right for me, it's not right for them. So as long as it was fair, I'm a pretty fair individual. I mean, very honest and fair, I think. So at the point where I knew I wasn't screwing them over, it's all good, you know.
Does it get to a point where you feel responsible for, like, let's say, you know, in a nightclub,
Bad choices to let people in.
The crowd.
the crowd, exactly.
The crowd,
Like,
well-
when you have a crowd where it's kind of like more women than men, you could say, and everyone, women feel more comfortable because there's not so many men on top of them, and right.
That's one thing. There's the looks.
Right.
There's so many things
And then
that
I
define
I
a
think
think
that-
the most regretful are the people that you kind of know. You have in the back of your mind, this guy's gonna do something. He's gonna create some sort of problem, but you still let him in because you give them a break, and then they get in a fight, or they spill something over people, and they're a nuisance, or they do something stupid.
And
Those
you
are the
kinda
biggest
feel like,
regrets
man.
because, as far as dress code and the looks on people and the ratio, I always tried to be fair and keep it well balanced, 60-40 at least. Sometimes you couldn't do it, but I mean that's the things that as the night progresses, you understand that there's great nights,
Yeah.
there are okay nights, and there's terrible nights, and there's some nights where
But you
gotta
would watch out for that. You would be conscious.
that's my job.
One thing I can say is that when Mario was there, we probably the exceptions were probably more us
Yeah.
and our sub promoters and you know than himself.
It was more on their side, and I would tell them, and then you know it's towards the night. Sometimes we get big fights, big arguments. I mean, at the end of the night, it's everything's good. We go in, we have a drink, and it's you know end of story. But sometimes I would get frustrated because I was telling them, you know, hey, you know, but you know, it's not in the sense that they're trying to not keep their party at 100%. But some nights aren't going to be the great night as it carries through, and they haven't, you know, they've stood around a door long enough to know that, hey man, even if you want to be positive and you think we're going to have a great crowd tonight, it's going to be so crowd
you
today.
lower your standards according to that, for sure.
Cool.
But
So when you go out, do
Yeah.
you feel when you see a doorman? Do you feel ready? Like, oh, I got this. Like, I already know how to talk. Is there a language?
No, because I mean that you're getting my perspective. There's a lot of doormen that are just jerks, you know.
Yeah.
Right now I'm 37 years old. I'm not as fit as I used to. I'm a bit older, and I showed up to a club the other day, and I actually went up to the guy. I didn't want to wait in line, so I kind of cut my corners. Went in. That you understand. You can't wait behind everybody and expect people not to move out of your way. You got to be aggressive. Get towards the front of the door. Once I got there, I told
people, please stop doing that. For some reason, you guys get to the club, you stand behind, you stand there and wait for somebody to come to you. It's not gonna happen.
That's a tip.
You gotta go to the doorman, speak.
Okay.
So I happened to work at that venue 3-4 years ago, and I don't recognize most of anybody in there. But I got to the door, and the guy, I kind of explained, look, I worked here. I was a doorman at this club. I'm a bit older. I'm really not gonna mess around with the nuisance and all the kids and all. All I want to go is inside. I have a friend. It's a birthday. If you say no, I'm just gonna split. I'm not gonna deal with it because I
Yeah.
dealt with it enough on the
Exactly.
other side. So I go, I mean, and I know that you're probably the doorman. Right away he went, I'm not the doorman. I'm the manager. Well, that's irrelevant for me because you're at the door, you know. But we started off on the wrong foot. I used to work here, and my position as a doorman was a lot better paid and a lot more. I had more responsibilities than the manager that they had inside, which was a clown to my
Wow.
expectation. I didn't tell him that.
Yeah.
I just went along with him, and the next thing I know, he goes a minute, 30, not even 30 seconds into telling me that, and he said he'd take care of me. Then, girl, you know, he goes, but I got to charge a cover charge, and I went and texted the owner. The owner was out on a boat, so he didn't get the text. He responded to me nicely the next day. I didn't expect any less from him because he's a nice individual. But he took me in. I go, well, if I have to pay, maybe I'll turn around. But when I got there at the door, there was somebody that knew me from the
Awesome.
venue beforehand, and they comped me, and I went inside.
All right. Let me ask you a
Awesome.
question.
That's good.
Did the position in the you know as a doorman help you build the network you know that you built to starting
The restaurant,
your new business?
Absolutely, yeah. When I started at Soccer on Biscayne Boulevard, I advertised one time in Miami Magazine of some sort of program I was into with Prime Card, and it was exchange. And I didn't really advertise other than that one time in Miami Magazine, a full page. And I don't even think it made a difference to be on there, because I think for advertising you have to be very consistent, and you follow up month after month on the same magazine to create some sort of branding for you. But it definitely, I started working at the nightclub, and it was one helped out the other. Every client that walked into my restaurant, initially, a lot of them were thanks to the nightclub. So the nightclub, from being at the door,
Helped you a lot.
me having cards, if it wasn't a conflict of interest, which I think never happened, because we worked at nightclubs most of the time, not restaurants. Some were restaurant / nightclubs, then maybe back off a little bit more discreet. But I usually carry 50, 60 business cards on me. Whenever anybody came in, I would give them a card if it made sense to give them a card.
Some people didn't understand it. That's why I mentioned at the beginning that you working the doors was not a necessity kind of thing, and I the amount of people that you meet when you're at a door, clubs, we're talking about thousands of people going through these doors on a daily basis. It's you can't measure that easy. So
Yeah, you're the front.
A lot of my
people
success
don't understand
initially-
why he would be
Networking.
the owner of this this restaurant, and at the same time be doing that kind of thing. So
It was good
those-
money too. I mean, these guys weren't
exactly.
cheap. They weren't cheapo. They gave me
They were paying you good,
There
they
was
were
a
taking care
good
of you.
payroll. I think that what I would make on 2 to 3 two, depending if I worked 2 to 3 nights with them, mostly 2 nights, was sufficient for on a monthly basis for me to cover my mortgage. I mean, plus the tips. So it was. I had that taken care of. So I mean,
because
it
you were
was
doing
savvy.
both?
Yeah.
You were doing both. You
Yeah.
had the restaurant
and worked the night.
Oh, okay.
And it was savvy because I made good money. They paid well. I mean,
And
they
you
had a
were
great party
promoting.
going. They made good money. I made good money.
And for us, the clientele he had at the restaurants was the kind of crowd we wanted.
Yes.
Also, so we knew that he was
It was
going
a
to be
double
invited.
whammy.
Yeah. I'd say, well, most of the people came from the nightlife into the restaurant. I built up the clientele. Once it started happening and it was a happening restaurant and doing well, the same thing happened. My clients would come in, I'd talk to them, have a seat, and once I got, I'd give them a card, my business card, as well as, look, this is a complimentary ticket. Sometimes I would give them the ticket or a ticket or just a business card from Julio or Quilla, so they would have some sort of contact with them. And then, a lot of people found it kind of funny that by the time they, left the restaurant, I would leave sometimes early, take a quick shower, get dressed, fumble in late a lot of times. These guys gave me a lot of breaks for showing up late. Don't do it. But I used to show up sometimes late because I was fumbling both things, but I think it helped us both. So when I would show up sometimes, I'm in a suit and a tie, and they're walking in after eating at my restaurant, and they're like, what's this guy doing here? And it was funny, but sometimes I didn't know if I was going to make it on time for that person to show up before me being there. And then Julio or Quilla knew, hey, this is a guy that's coming from Mario's restaurant, had spent some money on dinner. It's probably a good client. We're going to take care of him if he hasn't gotten here.
Did you ever do like after the party you could go, or the restaurant would it be open?
No, the restaurant by that time was closed. I mean,
How did you get into this part of the business, the restaurants?
well, I mean, I went to school for hotel management and hospitality at FIU. After fumbling through 15 different majors, I finally ended up doing the hotel management and hospitality. I went to school for like 10 years. I mean, I should have like 3 masters because I did go to school. I did have good grades and I did fulfill them. It's just that I fumbled around thinking what I wanted to do until I finally went into hotel management and hospitality. I worked at the nightclub. I started working at the Ritz-Carlton in Coconut Grove as a concierge for a few years.
Oh, nice.
And then, it was time for me to open up. I wasn't really that interested in the whole hotel aspect, more the restaurant aspect. So I went ahead, I'm going to open up a Japanese restaurant where I can have a number of, all my favorite items from all the places I go to under one roof and make it kind of a fusion and make it interesting and make it different, not be your regular Joe, sushi place that there's.
And talk to me a little bit about that inspiration of the fusion. Where would you say that your sushi is different because it has, kind of like that Latin flavor?
Yeah, I think that, half of the items on the menu are traditional and it's what you expect to get elsewhere. Your dragon, your California, some of the basic salads, the miso soup and everything. But then I'd say it's not half and half anymore. I think one third or 1/4 is the traditional, and like 3/4 is, things that you're not going to have elsewhere unless, it happens to be a fellow that worked with me and took off and opened up the place.
Nice.
And copied my items.
So now you have 3 different locations, right?
Right now we have 3 working locations: Sunset, right here, which is here, Key Biscayne, and Biscayne and 18th right now. Yeah.
Okay, so what would you tell somebody is the biggest mistake somebody can make when opening a new restaurant? Because I know you've also seen them open and close.
Yeah, I mean, just it's not a race, guys. You don't have to. It's definitely not a race. So if you open one successful, location, I would strongly suggest you sticking to it for 2 to 3 years. I mean, after 2 to 3 years, you should be gaining most of whatever you put into the business. And you should be, maybe after 4 years, some places if you're doing well. But after 3 to 4 years, you should, have a profit to whatever you initially spend. So before you venture onto another one and start, becoming thin in all areas, it's better just to become solid in one particular place 2 to 3 years and then go on onto your next venture.
That's a very good tip. In all businesses, right?
I believe so.
Yes.
I think that some places are going to be more successful than some locations are going to be great from day one. Some are going to take a little more push. So why not get one location after 3 years, your investment's back in your pocket, you have money, reinvest on your second location, give it 2 to 3 years. And once you have those two, well then if those two are making great numbers and you can open and venture into 2 in 1 year or 2 in 2 years, but you have some leverage with the other two to support these while they get going. But location is very important, and parking is ultimately a huge thing about restaurants. When you have a restaurant that has no parking, it becomes a problem.
Yeah, Mario actually was part of one of our projects that did not go anywhere due to parking.
Yeah, that was
a big issue.
Unfortunate.
Did you ever run into anyone in your restaurant that you gave a hard time at the door?
Yeah.
Did they recognize you?
Yeah.
Did you
At that point in time, I could just be a client walking around, right?
Did you hook them up or?
I was a client walking around. I never distinguished myself with wearing any tag or anything. So, just play it easy for a while, or see if you can get it, suggest or send them a dessert, and sometimes I break them a break. I was a bit of a jerk that night, or circumstances didn't allow me to be the nicest of guys. But here's some dessert on me. I took care of an appetizer. Maybe we can mend things. I'll be at a certain club tonight. Go to the club. I'll take care of you. I'm not gonna make you wait. We'll make it fast.
Mario, I know you've had different partners. What do you recommend when looking for the right partner?
In this type of business?
Yes.
Yeah, just the right partner. I don't think ever exists to in the sense that there is a right partner for the right situation depending on what the situation is. So, I mean, if you're going to have a partner that's going to come in with you, and you got to make it very clear. If that person you don't think has the qualities to be a restaurant owner or the capabilities of running that type of restaurant or can't deal with the stress of running a restaurant, then you should have to make it very clear from the beginning. Okay, are you going to be my business partner? If you're going to put capital and invest, that's what you're going to do. You can come in, you can eat, you can socialize with whoever you want, but you're not going to be telling anybody in my kitchen what to do, any of my servers what to do, because we're going to stick to that. You're going to put the money, and I'll work for it. I'll make the dividends happen. I'll make your money, and I'll give it back to you at the end of the month. So you got to clarify what type of partner. I mean, I have type of partners that have put the money in, and they're still great at at the hospitality industry. They can carry their own weight, and they come in and they help out, and some of them are managers with me, but it depends on what you're doing and what location. But just you have to set everything at the beginning. I mean, what type of partner you're going to be with.
Yeah, right. Because the passion, I think, it's important.
Some people have passion and love the restaurant business until they get into it.
Exactly.
So you gotta just be honest and be. What type of partner are you going to be? Are we going to be partners to the point where you're going to be a manager one shift and I'm going to be the manager a different shift? And are we going to rotate? And are we going to be, make it clear? And if that person doesn't have those qualities and has the money, then you have two options. You can either be very honest and blunt about it and tell them, we can make it happen, but I got to run the show completely. And you look out from the outside as a patron. Consider yourself a patron while you're at the restaurant, except you're not going to pay maybe, or you have to, walk away and let the deal not happen, because down the path it's just gonna hurt.
So the tip is kind of like, if you're gonna come into the restaurant business and you find a partner, one of your first tips is be sure to have the right partner and be very clear. Put all the cards on the table.
All the cards on the table and all the papers on the tables and the pens. I think that when it comes down to to doing any type of business, the best thing to do is put it on paper.
The American way.
Just take out a piece of paper, write everything down, make everything clear, give it. Don't sign then and there and give a handshake and it's good to go. Even though there's, give it after you have everything jotted down and everything. Now, during the process, not once, not twice, maybe it takes 5 more times of sitting down. Keep on writing on that paper.
Yeah.
Keep on clarifying things. Oh, we went to buy out the floor for the restaurant, but this happened, and you didn't like what happened in that circumstances because they wanted it to be a gray wall and you wanted it to be white. Understand? Who's going to make the choices? Make it clear so that everything is in there. So once it's built out and made, everything's on paper, and then take it to a lawyer. Have it signed, and it's the right way to do things.
So talking about partnerships, what's the worst thing that's happened to you, or that you think could happen when it comes to partners?
Well, financially, there could be problems when people aren't straightforward and honest, maybe of funding the project or where the funding is. Once you have it on that paper, and they don't fulfill that, maybe funding is going to be one of the things that's going to scare you the most, because even if the person is hard-headed or anything, some other things you can work out, but if the money isn't there, I think at the end of the day, it's a business. A business doesn't run without money. No money, no business.
Yeah.
Nobody's happy. So I think funding...
Yeah, don't ever listen to the words, money's not an issue for me. You hear that all the time.
When you hear that from people, I think it's...
definitely an issue.
See, this is the thing. If I lend somebody money, I usually don't bother them for the money until they come around and give me the money. When you lend somebody somebody lends you, even if it's $20, and they're calling you telling you before they're leaving when they're going to pay. Usually, that person that's asking you when they're going to pay, is the person that will never pay when you lend them. Exactly. And in this case, the worry about funding is usually what somebody that you're going to have to worry about funding is going to tell you, because it's nonchalant. That's why they say it. Because they don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's very good. And what do you miss? When did you decide to stop doing the door?
Well, just the fact that
do you remember your last door night?
Yeah.
You do? You remember the last night that you just said, you know what?
Was there Jaeger involved?
No Jaeger. It was actually a quiet night.
Yeah.
It was at
you heard it
with Julio and Quilla.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Was it like a night that you just, I don't know, you heard your
It was a
snap
night that
and
wasn't
you
good for any of us, because we were getting kind of screwed over by the club.
Oh, okay.
Payments weren't coming in. And I understand, and I was always, one thing these guys have always been good is that, if they owed me the 500, 600, 1,000, and they weren't getting paid by the club, they would always, even if the club didn't pay them, they would end up paying me. And I don't think anybody out there can say that. In that sense, these guys aren't 100% solid, because they took the hit for a lot of us all the time. And there was times that was frustrating, because that's the nightlife. I mean, and they didn't get cut their check. But if they had the money, they would take care of it immediately. If it was something that was taking place months and months, and it slowed them down.
Yeah, let me pause for a second. You want to highlight that as a promoter, even when you had bad nights, you always took care of your staff. You took care of your people. Yeah. That's something that for those promoters out there who are coming into this business and they're new, they have to understand that you got to keep your staff happy. You gotta, if you take
your own business.
It's your own business.
It's your own business, and it's not their fault that your business is not getting paid. Even though some people understand it,
exactly.
In the end, most people will go out there and not, be nice.
Yeah. We worked together for over a decade and a half, over 15 years, I'm sure.
Wow.
And I knew that they were good for it all the time. So if they had to take care of the promoters, take care of it. I kind of was part of the team. But sometimes they took the hit entirely, and they still came back to me a month, 2 months later. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it would take. It was a lot.
And they took care of you.
And they came
always
back and
take
took care
care
of
of your staff.
If let's say that
So
right now, if let's say that right now
we're
we're owed about $150,000 from clubs, from those $150,000 that we are owed, there's probably about $75,000 in expenses.
Yeah.
That we still pay.
Of course.
So it's not only the 150, it's then the 75 that we take out of our pockets to take care of. And it happens all the time. And we have lost, that's
Doorman,
like we mentioned the day we had Gaudi on the show, from clubs, like all types of excuses. Clubs that have closed,
Like
to,
house.
Yeah, and to things like Kima. Yeah, house is the one that Gaudi mentioned too. House owes us 38 grand actually. Odos.
It's
whatever.
funny, that house had problems with everyone.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
But for example, with Kima, where the guy passed, so it's really hard to find him. But in the end, somebody else will come, a new place will open, and we have to continue.
So that last night.
Let me interrupt one before I say, and at the same point, the guy from Kima, I've also seen them, knowing that the night isn't going to take off, and I've seen them bite the bullet to try to help out an owner. I mean, it's not like they let him, out there to die. They stayed in places that they knew weren't going to keep going, but they wanted to give an opportunity and a chance so that person could feel, that they gave it all they had. But
and it was also a challenge, right? It was kind of challenging.
Sometimes
you have
it was a challenge.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes
there's nothing's gonna happen, but
Yeah.
you still.
sometimes they're
give it your
foolish
best.
though, because they went through and helped that continue helping.
So that last night, you said you remember.
Yeah.
How did you know? Was it something that you just said, you know what, I'm done. Let me focus into the.
No, I mean this is kind of the party was gonna die off. I think the last night that I worked the door was the last night at the party,
Oh.
and then kind of like after that it was. You have certain things in your life that events that take place. I had gotten married. I had gotten back from my honeymoon. I'm with a wife. I mean, it was time to
A lot of things have changed.
a lot of things changed. So it was time, it's not the certain circumstances anymore. It's not the same age anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think a doorman will ever look foolish at a door, because I've seen some pretty badass 50, 60-year-old
Yeah.
looking doorman
Yeah,
out
you
there,
can
and
do it.
I go, wow, this guy's badass,
Yeah.
Even so, it's not that necessarily the age. I mean, you never know the circumstances in life. I wouldn't have a problem working the door tomorrow if I had to. Well, I've had to lose about 40 pounds, but I've gained some weight. I don't fit into my suits anymore, and that was a big thing. I always like to dress sharply, because if you're at a door and you're telling somebody that's trying to come in to dress sharply, to be allowed into the club and you look like shit, then there's no point to
That's
it.
another tip. Hey, if you work in the door, make sure you rock your best suit, right? Your best
I had
jacket.
over
You gotta
50,
look
60
amazing.
suits, nice shoes, nice ties, nice everything. I try to look sharp all the time. And nowadays, if I were to, I know that there's definitely adjustment to be made if I wanted to work at a club again, because before Club 50, one of the funny instances, some guy shows up, wants to come in. He's a resident. He's wearing some Prada sneakers or Gucci sneakers that are worth about $1,500. He tries to tell me his shoes are worth more than my whole outfit together. I told him he wasn't right. That probably the pin I was wearing on my suit was worth more than anything he had in his whole wardrobe. But it wasn't the fact. I was lying.
Yeah.
But I wanted to kind of challenge him.
It was a nice pin, though. It was a
nice pin, and I was going to, I was telling him, I came back with the same type of instance. He was an asshole. I wanted to be a bigger asshole. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, nowadays, dress code is.
Yeah, so nowadays I would have to definitely adjust, because, I would definitely have to let the sneakers in. You let the baggy pants. Some people, now you see people going into the nicest clubs wearing the shittiest clothes they could wear.
Remember how people used to dress out to go out? That's
Tell
not a
you,
thing
man.
anymore.
That's one thing I always think about when I think about if I ever were to go back and work at a door, was adjusting to my standards, not necessarily lowering them, because there's no more standards. People have just decided to dress like crap nowadays.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's incredible. I guess
The shittier
people are
they
just-
look, and the shittier and more informal they are,
No, and
sometimes it's the easiest way to get in.
Well, sometimes also it could look bad, but maybe they feel that they're allowed to wear it because it's expensive. You know what I mean? Like the Gucci sneakers. Before, no sneakers were allowed. You couldn't come in.
Well, I think
with-
it's also
with
about
sneakers.
comfort.
Yeah.
This generation's more into comfort than the whole I'm wearing this and that. Whatever. It's just the way it used to be and the way it is now. It's different. Period.
Yeah, everything.
So like you said, we not only him, we have to adjust in general.
Yes.
Everybody.
Hey, but that's a good thing that you just mentioned, that you could be a doorman at any age. So for our viewers out there, also our listeners, that just as we invite you to become part of the nightlife as a promoter, as a DJ, and those who I would assume, like,
And my DJ's 55.
if you want to be at the door, you have to have the hospitality mentality, and you want to be that person that talks to people and kind of networks, right?
Crack a joke every once in a while.
Exactly.
To break the ice.
So that, just know out there, party people, that you could come in to this industry at whatever age. You're totally invited, and you just have to adjust.
Sometimes
you
it's
do
an
have to
advantage
adjust
to be a little older because people are going to look up to you as more of a, as an older person. You're just going to have more respect towards you. It might make it more experience and more respect towards you when they walk. I mean, you're going to be more experienced, so people are going to look at you and think of their mom and dad if you look a little older,
Mario, did you ever have an experience that was just the worst experience that made you go home and say, why am I doing
Not
this?
doing this ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I had for instance, one time I was working with another doorman that I was training, and I had somebody spit on him, and that was pretty disgusting. I can't say anybody spit on me. I've gotten called any bad word, anything you can imagine. They've called me anything you can imagine.
Wow.
And but I'm not. Thank God I never got spat on, but they did spit on a friend of mine, and
wow.
let's say that didn't go good for the guy that spit on my friend. I
could
mean,
imagine. So the worst that could happen is just somebody not getting in and obviously just going crazy,
well, I think they're getting somebody
but
spitting
that's
on.
That's
but
pretty
that
bad.
didn't happen
And that's in his case what he's talking about. But now, I mean, I've seen
Can get
I've
physical.
seen guys,
And the
getting
best-
physical. I've seen guys being sued, for getting physical, like bad,
It's horrible.
We have
Why would you ruin your night like
A
that?
good
Now,
friend who was a doorman for a while, Erico, and
I've seen
and
people
what
get hit in
he
the
was
face.
sued, like
he got sued?
He got sued. This was at La Covacha with Aurelio also, and the guy basically, he just picked somebody,
Shout out to La Coa.
threw him in the canal they had across the street.
What?
It's, stuff like that. He was a little crazy himself, but in the end, it's great. A lot of things can happen.
Yeah.
It can definitely
What was
get physical.
your best moment? Best moment being a doorman that you were like, man,
Christmas time.
yeah?
Yeah. One time I had one of my friend's dad, who was quite a character, show up in his limo, get out, and hand us a check for like $1,800 for me and the guy at the door for tips for the year. I mean, that's what he said. So he said, what do we do with this? And he said, well, you guys keep half and give the other half to the rest of the staff. And that's what we did. So we got
That's awesome. That's a great story.
just huge tip nights. I mean,
Yeah.
it's business.
You were
So
like,
I had the guy
smiley.
show up and hand me, I think the biggest, the handout was like $300-400, just given to me after he bought a table, and just said thanks for taking care of me. He gave me $400 on the way up to Club 50.
Yeah, imagine the stories from the waitresses, the really hot waitresses, which we'll get
so let
some
me
soon.
ask you this. Does that kind of make your night? Does that motivate you more? Does that make you be different? Because if I'm at the door and I'm kind of down or whatever, not letting people in, letting people out, and then a guy comes and gives me $400, does that change your mood? Or are you like now like, hey man, everybody could come in, take advantage for the next 10 minutes?
Well, not as much as that, but if I handed you $400 right now for the interview, you'd be pretty happy too, and you'd get crazy too.
I'll be eating this food all happy.
Shit.
So that's awesome.
Mario, let me ask you a question. What advice would you give the new generation of nightlife entrepreneurs, people getting into this business in general, just in the food and beverage business, hospitality?
In general, for a restaurant business, it would be one thing maybe, but for a nightlife entrepreneur, which is what you're doing, I'd say that one of the best things that we had, when I say we, I mean you, the group of promoters that you had, the individuals we work with, even the competition at times, or anybody else, that even though we were working at night, and even though there's a lot of alcohol involved, I think that most of the time, I'd say 90% of the people that were around us kept it clean. No drugs.
Got it.
If this is the type of business that if you get involved and you let drinking take you to other places, you're not gonna make it.
Get high on your own supply.
Amen to that.
So,
I think that's the most important.
That's a good tip for
I think
everybody.
that they gotta be very grateful for the group of people that we were involved with directly. Let's say now, more than indirectly, even though that most of the people, that in the Latin crowd parties and all that, and in that ambience, I mean, there was no heavy drug use or drug use whatsoever, I think, directly with the main guys. So if you wanna make it in the nightlife, I think that one of the most important things is keep it clean and be responsible.
23 years in the business,
Awesome.
and I've seen drugs in my clubs twice.
Oh wow.
Twice, and it's crazy. In 23 years, and it was shocking to me. It's something I'm completely against, and we usually looked for people that were in the same
Yeah, in the same
boat,
page.
same page, and it's something that I struggle with a little bit with, like, the new promoters and stuff, like, because when they start, their parents are still under, like, what are you doing? What are you planning on doing? No, I don't want you doing this. Go back to school and do this other thing, and they don't see this as real as a business. They think right away, my kid's gonna be doing drugs and drinking too much and all these things, and the reality is that in our ambiance, it's been very, very, very clean.
Maybe you haven't talked about that before, but I think it's an important point, especially for, you said, the young, up-and-coming generations. Is that, I mean, it was disappointing for me to go to a club which I had worked at, and it was clean, spick and span. You understand that not everybody's gonna be not using.
Yeah.
But it was pretty decent. And then when I went back, not working at the club, and I showed up at where it was a very young crowd, and I showed up late, and I happened to have the door open from the women's, not even the men's bathroom. There was about 15 baggies on the floor.
Oh wow.
That was so disgusting for me and so disappointing. Because why was I looking at inside? Because there was a lady selling cigarettes. It was really late, almost closing time. She opened the door to hand me the cigarettes. There was the baggies, kind of like the wind just brought them all out at the same time. And that was so disappointing. And I said, wow, those are the things that kind of, you say, what's going on? And the time to let it go. And that was something that wasn't even working. It was at a place where I wasn't working, but I had worked years before. Seeing that, the baggies on the floor of drug consumption, and seeing the crowd of young crowd, I'm not going to say underage, but young, the young crowd, barely legal to get into the club, and you see them under those partying under those circumstances, was kind of like, wow, this is unfortunate.
Disappointing.
Yeah.
And well, I think that if drugs would have been involved, like, I don't think this relationship would have lasted
Oh, no,
15
I don't
years.
think so.
I don't think we would even be here, because that just kind of kills everything, right?
Yeah.
In the long run. So
be professional,
So-
stay away from the drugs. That's the best advice I could give, is something that we overlooked because something that we greatly overlooked because we didn't know how fortunate we were to have the people that we had around us, and we always overlooked it. But once, as an adult now, analyzing and thinking back, it's like, wow, that was weird. I mean, we were partying and we were involved in maybe heavy drinking at times.
We drank.
We drank,
Yeah.
And it's not good by no means
Yeah,
to
yeah.
drink either, and
Gotta drink
into that
responsibly
drink
and
responsibly.
not drive.
Because one thing I had was, I'll make a joke about it now, but I could be at the door and not have a drink because I wouldn't drink at the door. But once I went in, that little game that you shoot the angle target and it comes over and hits.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of would point it on the ninth and the perfect 45-degree angle and put all power to it and let it go and rip.
I think one of the reasons I have a certain time that I go home is because it's usually when he gets out of the door.
Yeah. So that time was like I overshot
Yeah,
it,
you do.
But one thing I would never do. I mean, even if I drank, sometimes I would like to have drank less than I did, but I was having fun. Was one thing. I had $20 in my pocket, no Uber. Back in the day, no Uber.
Yeah.
$20 would get me safe home. I wouldn't drive. My old man,
Awesome.
my friends, anybody around, or a cab would drop me off at the nightclub. And if I was gonna have one drink, I would carry $20 to make it back home safely. I would never drink and drive. So nowadays,
Another
you guys
great
have
tip.
no excuse with Uber to
Yeah.
get involved in any drinking and driving, because I've seen 30, 40-minute drives on Uber, like $20-$25. Pay the $25.
Yeah, no, Uber's
no
the best.
drinking and driving. Be responsible. And back to the point, well, the greatest thing was of the group was that the fact that there was no drugs involved with our group. Directly.
At the end of every episode, Mario, we
nightlife.
do a little segment that's called the Night Father.
Yes.
Not being a parent,
married.
doesn't mean that we can't,
Yeah, but
ask you about being a parent in this industry. How do you see that? Like, do you see it possible? Do you see it, is it not possible? What are your thoughts on
Or
that?
how do you feel being married?
Oh, I'm married. I'm
Yeah.
married, and I had as my stepson while I was working, and things changed because
Yes.
I couldn't show up after 40 Jaegers to get home, and the kids see me on those circumstances. But I worked some time while my stepson, I don't even consider my stepson. My son was with us, and it was just things change. And then the night, if I was at Club 50, 3 a.m. wasn't the time to get in the elevator and overshoot everybody with the shots of Jaeger and tequila. It was time to go home.
Exactly.
Maybe go off for 5 minutes, say hi to the guys, have one drink, a beer, smoke a cigarette, get back into my and go downstairs and leave.
So it
you
does
could
change. It does give you that kind of like
yeah, you have
that
to have.
responsibility
I mean, as in
conscious.
general in life, when you have a kid, or you're responsible for any young adult or children, things are gonna have to be moderated and changed. That doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yeah.
There's plenty of bartenders and promoters and stuff that have children, and they know how to fit it in their schedule in a way that they can make things right and make them work for everybody that's involved in the family.
What's the latest that these restaurants are open? So-
Yeah, restaurants are usually open till 11 or midnight. So, I mean, my schedule is kind of a afternoon-based schedule, noon to
okay.
midnight. But
Okay.
yeah, I think you can obviously. It's the same thing as being a waiter. I mean, if you're a cocktail waitress or a bartender or work at the door or the lady that charges at the door, you can still have your family and fit it in, as long as you're responsible and know how to, manage your time wisely. I mean, is it the most ideal job? Well, I'm not that type of person to say that it's not ideal or ideal. I think it's depending on the circumstances and what's going on, you could definitely do it.
Awesome, man. Mario's been very informative. I love it. I love this interview. He's giving us. Listen, anyone who's thinking about working the door, being the Mac Daddy, you've heard it from the best, because he not only has a lot of experience, but you see how he's taken his network to another level now,
Really?
and you in some sort of way you're still kind of attending to those people
Yeah.
that used to meet you at the door. Now you're just doing it in another level with your incredible food, because I think
Amazing.
your sushi
Amazing food.
is one of the best in Miami.
Yes.
So we're really
Yes.
happy.
You know what?
about this
He
interview.
mentioned something regarding the age, of the doorman. The fact that it doesn't matter how old a doorman can be. And I was just thinking about it, and what I don't recall is like very young ones. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
young. Like
I was a young doorman.
Like you started very early.
I was
and it's-
17, 18
yeah.
years old.
So you kind of you had a doorman career in a way.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find young.
Hey,
There has to be a little experience in order to be in that position.
When you go to to other cities, right? Like you go to New York. Like
Yeah.
I remember doormans in New York when it's like below zero,
Yeah.
and they're at the door, and
Oh yeah.
man, it's they're covered up, but they're there all
Yeah.
night
Yeah.
long till 5 a.m. and it's tough.
It's tough.
crazy.
I mean, you obviously don't have below the zero weather here,
Yeah.
but I mean, there was hot days.
The good thing
There were
about
some
hot days?
really cold days in Miami back
Some
in the day
cold
too,
days.
and you got to stand out there when everybody's inside having fun and having drinks. But I made it a night. I had fun outside. I don't have no regrets. It's made me who I am. It's molded me into becoming who I am, and I think I have no regrets about being at the door at a club. I mean, it was fantastic.
Are you planning on opening more restaurants?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get a couple more restaurants going within the next couple of years. I wish I could open up a nightclub. I don't know if that's gonna ever happen, but
Yeah.
that's something, or a bar, something more towards the drinking.
Well, we got some stuff to offer you later on.
All right. And like I said, the
That's
age
real
age
estate.
for the doors, I don't think really matters. Two of the most emblematic doormen was Massimo from the beach. That guy he's probably in his 60s now, but was in his 40s, 50s when he was doing the door, and he was
Wow.
badass. And then you had I don't know his name, the guy at Bash, the little Italian guy with the huge tie all the time, who was quite a character.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you got, another thing, I work with a great number of guys, like Shota was one of the last guys, Perry who was also
These are all door guys?
all yeah.
That's awesome.
Perry, Shota, who
Very
else?
well dressed guys.
And you guys all knew each other and
Yeah.
kind of like all.
It was Perry,
each
Shota,
other's
then the
stories.
latest, and then I mean, a lot of great guys, you know. So and they're still around and they're still doing great, and some of them have ventured into other things, but you know, it was great working along with those guys. I even worked with Davide, who works at the Wall now.
Oh,
We worked
nice.
at a couple places together, and you know, sometimes that was the funnest nights as a doorman was. On the contrary to some people might think it's a pain in the butt, and I was working alongside with another doorman.
Oh, yeah,
when you
of
had
course.
two guys working one door, that
Yeah.
was the best. That's
Right.
when you had the most fun. You know?
Yeah, I can imagine those stories.
Oh yeah.
Going to each other.
You
for sure.
placing bets.
Oh yeah. I remember coming
let
up
him
to
in,
one.
we don't let
I
him
remember
in.
coming up to Ricky, one of our doormen, and saying, "Bro, that girl's super hot. Why the hell is she not inside?" I'm like, "Exactly, because she's super hot." What do you mean? I want her there. I want to see her.
Yeah.
You know, she's
Let
not
her in.
getting in. I'm just gonna take
He's
a
like,
look.
no, I want her to suffer.
Exactly.
I want her to remember my name.
Yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
So guys, we're very thankful to
Yes.
have Mario here today. We are even more thankful for the food.
I'm sorry, man. I
Um,
kind of ate like all year.
It's all good. It's all good. We're not going anywhere. And remember, man, just don't tip $5. Don't tip $5.
Don't tip $5. Yeah, man.
You know,
I
That's-
got three once,
You got
No.
3?
Yeah.
Oh, no, come
That's-
on. Be a good.
and I was
tipper.
excited because
So did that person
they
get
were-
through?
You got through, but it was slick because they put the three and they wrapped it up in a bunch, and I go, wow, I got $60 here working on 60. When I got it was $3. I was, wow, this guy's such a cheap ass.
All right. Hey, who we have next week?
Next week
Oh.
we have a girl, man.
The bouncer.
First
Oh no.
girl.
not the
first.
bouncer.
No,
Oh,
next
first
week.
female in the
is
Nightlife?
First female in Nightlife
Wow.
Entrepreneurs Podcast. So you guys watch out.
Tune in. Tune in.
Definitely.
Yes.
Again, Mario at Sagi Room.
Yeah.
And sagaroom.com, nightlifeentrepreneurs.com/podcast.
Icotap Spear at the Raw Food and Wine Festival.
The Nightlife
Hey.
Entrepreneur at LMG Miami.
Ask for
And
Cusqueña.
remember, Cusqueña, iTunes,
Kenya.
As for Cusqueña.
Spotify.
Yeah. iTunes, Spotify,
Dude, I can't
Facebook.
drink
What else?
all those things. YouTube.
Edit.
Find us,
We
Nightlife
love you.
Entrepreneurs. See you next week.
See you next week.